clear in there.
Well, that's rough.
Yeah.
Yeah. Here we are.
Hello. Welcome. I'm Locke.
I'm Noon.
We're here to save the world. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. Because we like an audience.
We do. All right. So we're gonna start. I know that last week we said we were gonna jump into my little conspiracy theory that I've kicked. It's not really a conspiracy theory, but the thing that I've cooked up that all my friends look at me and roll their eyes when I talk about it. It's just a fun thing. That
Really,
that,
it's kind of a hopeful too, in a way. I mean, if
in a way,
it's,
it could be hopeful,
right?
But right now, I think it's something that's important to a lot of people right now. That I guess I have a little bit of insight in. My data is pretty old, but I mean, I was over there in Southeast Asia. We're talking about North Korea and bomb tests and everything that's going on right there. But what everybody needs to keep in mind, want to check and make sure. Yeah, there we go. What everybody needs to keep in mind is that, number one, this happens every year. Okay, at the end of August, they do an exercise. Okay, the South Koreans
and Americans,
the Americans, the Japanese,
right.
I mean the Australians. It's a big exercise. Like, it's a big, huge freaking exercise. Every year, whichever Kim is in power gets pissed. They do saber rattling, right?
Sure.
Where they'll, I mean, and you can do this, man. And this is the best thing about living in the world that we live in right now. You can go to Google and you can do a search for news stories from August 15th, September 15th, 2016, and back as far as you want to go back. You're going to see the same shit over and over and over again. Every time we run this exercise, they piss and moan and their panties get in a twist. And then we are done with the exercise and they are done with the panty twisting. It is a pattern.
What's interesting is the and of course it's fun to watch the experts scramble around about this. Of course, absolutely any information come out of North Korea is seen through a veil. It has to be seen through a filter or something, right? I mean, this is Kim Jong-un, of course, claiming he miniaturized a hydrogen bomb,
right,
and exploded it, right?
Right.
I've heard experts dispute that, say this was probably an upgraded atom bomb.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, it was felt in Norway, so it could have been full of Skittles, and it really doesn't matter. It was
right.
It was a
they said they blew something up,
right,
really big,
right. The whole thing, North Korea fascinates me. Not from an admiration standpoint,
right?
Or anything,
but just from
it's just a fascinating thing. I mean, it
is a pretty fascinating thing.
I've lived through some regimes, right?
Right.
And this is it's amazing that he treats his people so atrociously, but they just love him for it, right? And I mean, they have no choice. This is some extreme conditioning over decades and decades.
Yeah.
But the whole thing just fascinates me. Especially with the current situation, the rhetoric, the back and forths, and the tweets, and everything that's going on.
Right.
And Kim Jong-un, he's not a stupid guy. He studied outside of North Korea. He studied, I believe, at one point even in America. I know he did in the UK. He's not a stupid guy.
Right.
He's a whole bunch of other things, but he's not stupid. And if you put yourself in his shoes, which is tough to do, but if you put yourself in his shoes, and at some point, he's been drinking the Kool-Aid of North Korea his whole life. He's
right.
He's certainly, what is he, third generation in this regime?
Yeah,
his father and his grandfather.
Yeah.
So he was brought into this thing pretty.
Oh, from day one.
Pretty fucked in the head, anyways.
Yeah,
but and I suppose each generation gets better, in quotations, than the last, right? I mean, he's really, really expedited a lot of missile tests and propaganda, right, and all of it. I mean, he's
yeah. You got to wonder, and this is always my question: like, what's the end game, right? So, what's the purpose of it? For them to, without a shadow of a doubt, I guess, show us that they have nuclear capabilities. Okay. A lot of places have nuclear capabilities that are can be questionable places. Okay. I'm going to use the example of Pakistan. Right? Pakistan been known in the past to harbor terrorists or terrorist organizations, whether they do it complicitly or not. That's where they founded Osama bin Laden. So there has been some presence of terrorists in Pakistan. Pakistan has a nuclear weapon.
Right.
They have nuclear capabilities, probably on the level or more sophisticated than North Korea. And that's fine. Like, I guess what I'm trying to get at is when you're looking at this stuff and you got to think about, okay, lay it down the road. They launch a missile at Guam with a nuclear warhead on it. The chances of that missile actually reaching its target are pretty freaking slim.
With no intervening, it's pretty slim. I mean, that's hard to target those. You've got to come out of. You got to come into suborbit, right?
You're going into orbit and then coming right back in. Yeah,
which is hard enough.
It's pretty hard, but you're not. Like, it was hard for SpaceX because they wanted to come down slow.
Sure.
With a nuclear missile, and something probably in that kind of megaton range, you don't hit dead center.
Sure.
I mean, I say that with kind of 85% confidence in what I'm saying, but yeah, no, I don't know that they haven't had a whole lot of success getting it to go very far. So that's
Sure.
number one, right? Number two, the entirety of the Seventh Fleet is sitting right off their shore right at this moment. The entirety of it, not to mention their Korean buddies and their Japanese buddies and their Australian buddies, and everyone is literally sitting right there. So if he launches a nuke or he launches a missile of any sort right now, the entirety of the Seventh Fleet will see that happen. And I can tell you that from personal experience of having been with Seventh Fleet when North Korea has launched a missile. We know it happens immediately. It just,
True.
It's unmistakable, right? So you have the entirety of the Seventh Fleet sitting right there off the shore of Korea, the Korean Peninsula, literally waiting for this to happen, simulating it happening as they're sitting there waiting for it to happen. They're kind of simulating it happening anyway. It's not the time. Like, it doesn't make any strategic sense for them to launch a missile right now.
Right, and yet they did it last week right over Japan, which alone was an escalation. Most of the time, they're really, they're saying, "Hey, look what we can do," but we're going to do it over here, so that everybody feels comfy about it. Bad term. Nobody feels comfy about it. But last week they escalate and they fire one over Japan.
I know, and in between 1996,
in spite of the Seventh Fleet,
right? But in 1996, between 1996 and 1999, that same exact thing happened. Literally,
from his father, right?
Yeah, like literally the exact same thing happened because I was there. Like, I was the guy that was there when that happened,
right,
on the ship, and and that was not. That was a shitty experience. I had to go wake up a bunch of people who woke up in the middle of the night who were not very happy to see me.
Right.
They've done it. They keep doing it.
Sure, and they're going to keep doing it.
That was 20 years ago, man.
But here's why they're going to keep doing it, and here's why it does not really matter what any of us try to do about it. Do I think that he is going to strike with a nuclear warhead anytime soon? No. What I don't expect either is for any slowing, any stopping of this. Again, it's hard to put yourself in his shoes, but what I've noticed in Kim Jong-un, Vladimir Putin, any real dictator of any sort, the thing they worry about most is regime change, right? Or ending their power. I mean, this is something that in documentaries about Putin, and I don't want to change the subject to Putin, this is his biggest fear, is uprising. This has been since the beginning. This is the same for Kim Jong-un.
Right.
What Kim Jong-un has seen is take Omar Gaddafi. We forced him to end his nuclear program.
Right.
He did it.
Yeah, and we still drug him through the street.
We still drug him through the street, right? Now, there were a whole bunch of other atrocities happening. It wasn't just about the nuclear program, and we all know that.
Right.
But a guy like Kim Jong-un doesn't see what he does as atrocities either. So he's not going to stop. China has no bearing on him at this point.
You gotta wonder, though. Well, China does. I mean, China supplies them with a lot of stuff,
right? And have made no effort to stop that. They've kind of went, shouldn't be doing that.
I honestly think that China would be very likely to put the smack down on Korea if North Korea stepped out of it. But I don't think it would be the smackdown that we would do it, because we would do it with a Moab, right?
Right.
We would drop a giant freaking firebomb on Pyongyang, right?
Sure.
And China would just pay some general close to him to wipe everybody out. Like, I mean, I think that's how I see it going down, and I could be completely wrong, but that's kind of how I see it going down.
I don't know that you're wrong, but China does not want another American ally, right? They don't necessarily agree with North Korea. They just
so you're looking at it from the buffer zone perspective.
China
if
doesn't.
North Korea falls, and then it becomes South Korea, and then it becomes Korea.
North Koreans aren't going to go to South Korea for refuge. They're going to go to China. You know, it's going to become a big problem for China if North Korea disappears off the map. It's going to be replaced with another U.S. friendly ally, and they're also going to get a rush of refugees. 25 million people in North Korea.
Here's a question, and then this is something that I haven't thought about. Geographically, and my geography of that particular part of the world isn't that fantastic, but what U.S. ally borders China as it stands right now?
Well,
do we have one?
Mainly South Korea, right? So does
South Korea border China though?
Directly? No, but
North Korea does.
If you're right, and if you're North Korea, you are going to run to China. You're sure as shit not going to run to South Korea. So China is not going to want an influx of 25 million North Koreans.
I think that's merely. I think that particular occurrence has nothing to do with anything other than opportunity. It's much easier for them to get to China than it is for them to get to South Korea.
Right. Well, also China doesn't want it either way. They don't.
No, they usually return them. Well, no. China usually returns them. And then all shit breaks loose. So,
you know, so it's in China's best interest for things to stay the way they are right now, which is a pretty shitty situation. Anyways, I mean, the Korean War started in 1950.
Yeah, it's a shitty situation.
Has not ended, right? I mean,
it was a shitty situation back in the 90s,
right?
There, where they had a huge drought and a famine and everything like that, and there was some really nasty shit happening.
But it works for China. North Korea is a massive customer, right? Yeah. I mean, they spend a lot of money with China.
It does work for them, right? And I hadn't really thought about it that way.
So China is the line that North Korea has to cross for China to backhand them is pretty. It's way further past our line.
We might have gotten real close to it today because they rumbled China when they set that whatever they set off.
Yeah, shit, they felt that thing in Norway. I mean,
right.
they rumbled.
They rumbled a lot of people.
And China's in an interesting position, anyways, because China has recently sort of stepped up in the world, right?
Yep. And I think that's going to keep that trend is going to continue.
Right. Kim Jong-un is not going to stop. Doesn't mean he's going to preemptively strike an American territory I don't think he would hesitate if his regime was actually threatened, meaning invasion, right? If Mattis
hesitate to what?
To launch whatever the hell he has in all directions. I mean, the guy,
you think
if there's a pending invasion, somebody's getting hit. Unfortunately, it's probably going to be Seoul. It takes 45 seconds for them to obliterate Seoul. Seoul, I don't remember the population. It's 6 to 9 million people, right? I mean, Seoul is a massive city. It takes them 45 seconds to launch any conventional weapons. I'm not talking nuclear weapons here. I'm talking conventional weapons. And to just obliterate Seoul.
Well, no, and then in doing so, deals a massive, not only just casualty count, the human casualty count, which is unimaginable, and I don't even want to think about it, but ruins the economy of the entire world for decades, because a lot of our technology comes from South Korea. A lot of the technology that you walk around and hold in your hand, Samsung, LG, whatever you want to,
True.
A lot of that stuff comes there. Yeah, it's a sticky situation, right? But I kind of look at it. I kind of look at it from a different perspective with regards to Kim Jong-un and the people who are surrounding him. I think it's in their best interest. It's in their best interest, the people who are in power, to maintain the status quo. And that is exactly what they have done for the last 50 years, right? Like, the haircuts are the same, the technology level is the same. It's the hermit kingdom. They have shut. It's the barbed wire fence on that's spiked on both sides. They want to keep them in as much as they want to keep everyone out.
Absolutely.
These people don't, by and large, your average farmer who's out there busting his ass every day has no idea what the fuck's going on. Doesn't really conceive of the internet or any of that shit. Right?
No, actually, I heard the other day computer majors in North Korea don't know the internet exists.
I find that hard to believe, but it's just hard for me to believe that. But I'm. It doesn't sound unreasonable.
Now, they obviously probably bring some recruits up and then go, hey, guess what? We developed.
Yeah, because
we have the internet.
Right. Like, I don't know. It's such a weird place because you have no idea what the level of knowledge is there for anybody, right? I look at these guys and I see, just from a human perspective of looking at how humans do things, right? I see these guys sitting in this, they have their own kingdom. They can do whatever the fuck they want. I think that in order to intimidate the people, they do these, right? They show these people this missile going off, right? Look at how mighty we are, right? And to them, it's this big, shocking spectacle that is kind of insane to watch, right? Because they don't know that that is 1950 or 1967 technology, right? To them, this is something new.
How do you feel about spiders?
They don't bother me. Why? Is there one on me?
About to land on your shoulder. Yeah, you're there.
I don't like killing things. But
sorry about that.
No, that's fine. I appreciate the warning.
I figured that approach was better than if you were.
Absolutely. No, it's cool.
Right, gotcha.
I don't mind. I would prefer them not to be on me.
All right, back up. Sorry.
So no, it's cool. They have this kingdom where they can do whatever the fuck they want. They're big fish in a little pond, right? Why would they want to fuck with the pond that they have? Is kind of how I think about it, right? They have to maintain a spectacle for the people inside to wow them. But as far as the outside world is concerned, all they really want us to do is say, okay. They don't really want us to read.
Right. And I think what's so hard is to I tell you, it would be really hard for an American, a European, anybody to really put themselves inside Kim Jong's head, right?
Yeah, it is. Because you got to think the guy was brought up to think that he was a god.
Right. And to his people, he is. The thing is he's not stupid. His people are ignorant because they're of lack of information, but he's not. He knows.
He knows that there's another world out there.
Right, correct. He knows the internet exists. He knows his place, though, I think. It's hard to estimate his level of sanity or lack thereof. I mean, that's where things get complicated. But he knows that if he hits launch on any of these things and points it anyway, right? I mean, it's really his end.
Oh yeah, it's suicide.
So it keeps him at bay. I mean, but the rhetoric, the displays, they are going to get worse, right? Because he can justify. Oh, absolutely.
I think that they'll die down after this. Again, they're going to die down like they normally do after this exercise is over. And I think they'll go quiet for a little while.
Except in the last 6 months, he's in one way or another displayed more military might than they have in 8 years.
Yeah. Because
this is fueled by rhetoric. I mean, all eyes on me, right?
They have an audience now. I mean, nobody really acknowledged them that much before. They were like, "Oh yeah, knock it off," and that was about as far as it went. But now they've got this. They're trolling him. They're trolling him because he's easy to troll, and so it makes them look powerful when they troll him, and he reacts.
We've said it to our kids before, right? I mean, like, he's messing with you because
he's
you're
getting
reacting, right?
Yeah.
And this is exactly what's going on. But the problem is, as much as Kim Jong Un doesn't like a lot of the world for a lot of reasons, he really, really, really doesn't like America. With the lack of information, I mean, his people just, I mean,
yeah, they hate us.
We're the Sith, and he's every Jedi that ever existed embodied
right.
in one human being, right? I mean, that's the way it's set up. We are just absolute evil.
Yeah.
This could be played much smarter, but unfortunately, we have a rather shoot from the hip president also, right? So this is, I think, already fueling. I think that's why in the last 6 months things have accelerated with North Korea. I still don't think that they're going to preemptively strike anyone. I think that I think General Mattis just today, came out with impending doom for North Korea because of this test, right? I mean, these things aren't going to help. The truth of the matter is he wants to be a nuclear power because to him it's an upper echelon of world stage. I mean, this is we are finally made it, right? We're now
not
up
only that,
here with the greats.
Right, but not only that, it's a deterrent.
Right. Well, it is. If I have nuclear warheads, people are going to fuck with us less. My regime will be safer.
Right.
You asked earlier about where does it end? Obviously nobody knows the answer to that question. And to your point, they may just continue to keep the status quo for the next 50 years, right? He's so young, right? So we can only hope that the status quo is maintained and everything just kind of settles. I think you're gonna see more and more. If he actually, so the last nuclear test from North Korea, Richter scales are always a little bit, they're not the best data, but when that's all you have, that's all you have. So it was a 5.3. But it was also a much bigger bomb. So the key point of this, and again, we don't know for fact that they have miniaturized an atom bomb or what they're saying.
We don't have any idea what they've done.
Right? It said it could have been a truck full of Skittles. It doesn't matter. It was massive. It came in through a 6.3. So the message, the message Kim Jong Un is putting across. This is what fascinates me. Despite the seventh, despite America, despite China, despite everything, he just does it and does it again and does it again and does it again. And I think he's getting a lot of praise. And I feel like even as a weird dictator, he's still kind of immature. And I think immature people really feed off of that praise. I think you're going to see more and more. I do. I'm not sure. I mean, it's tremendously expensive to rock that entire hemisphere with like nuclear tests, right? But I think you're going to start seeing, just more and more and more of this. And I think, even though I don't believe preemptively he will strike anywhere, I think we also have a rather immature president that is going to continue to react.
He doesn't have a choice,
right? So we have two children on a playground taunting each other, right? I mean, at one point maybe a brick gets thrown, and that is a worry, right? As long as no one throws a brick, I think it's going to be fine,
right?
Yeah,
no. It's very complicated situation because I have to think about why he would test it right now, right? Okay, you're like, everybody's standing there watching, and he's gonna do it anyway, almost like he's trying to incite. But this is just my perspective, trying to crawl into the situation. That's exactly why he did it, because the story spinning that here they come again. Every year they come and they fight and they try to take us. We scare them off. You see what I'm saying?
Yep.
take it from the inside out. What are you trying to do? What are you trying to accomplish? You're trying to keep these people not only behind you, but convinced, right? You're not just trying to pen them in. You're trying to convince them that what is on the other side of that fence is the ultimate evil, and is going to hurt you and harm you and rape you and kill you and whatever the worst things you can imagine. That's what's going to happen to you on the other side of that fence. But here inside the kingdom, you are safe.
Mm-hmm.
That is the ultimate message. I mean, that's the ultimate message of any leader, right? In here, you are safe. With us, you are safe, right? That's what it all comes down to. And so, in order to convince people who have nothing at this point, and I believe they're suffering another round of drought and famine. And so when your people see the other side coming for them and they're already at their last bits of food, they need a little bit more strenuous convincing. So shaking the ground everywhere and telling your people, we're going to shake the ground in 12 hours. You're going to feel the might of the kingdom, right? Because I'm going to shake the ground. And so and then just as he said, in 12 hours, the ground shook. What that does to people who don't understand things like the internet and who have been convinced that these people are gods for generations. I mean, there can't be that many people left that actually were there during the Korean War. These people are getting it secondhand. These are people that have only known this.
Heavy conditioning.
Only ever known this. So that's my explanation.
Well, and I think, it's easier for me to sort of put myself in Kim Jong-un's shoes than to put myself in one of his people's shoes. I mean, that completely confuses me.
Well, because it's hard because you don't know what they know.
Right. I mean, look, if I have a child and from the time they're a baby, I teach them that purple is actually green, right? I mean, they're gonna believe purple is green. I mean, it's pretty simple stuff,
right?
Again, that's if I'm the leader of a country, right? I think of it as, I really want to protect these people, and I'm not sure that it's the same, right? Because I mean, this is like the 25 million people. It's like Kim Jong Un's doll collection. I mean, it's these aren't free thinking.
Well, you're thinking about it wrong, right? Because you grew up in a democracy,
right? That's my point. Is
these are to him these are not
this, right.
To him, these are the people are not. He is not there for the people. The people are there for him.
Right.
It's a completely different dynamic, and the people know that the people are not there for themselves. They're there for him.
Right. And that's really tough to even imagine being born an American, or
absolutely.
Even anywhere else, else
pretty much in any
Korea,
kind of
right?
Western modern society, that's a concept that's really kind of been lost.
It's fascinating. Right? Have you seen the ceremonies? Have you seen the dancing ceremonies?
Yeah,
Have you seen the video of these things?
Crazy.
I mean, these things are absolutely bizarre.
Yeah.
The whole thing is so bizarre.
It's psychological manipulation. Like, you're forced to celebrate. Like, this is something that is just, we talk about, I don't know if we talked about inertia, right? The inertia of ideas, right? The inertia of ideas, the idea being that this is what we do. And this is what we do. When when the bells ring, we go out, we put on our colorful outfits, and we run around the square and we dance hard as we can so that we don't die. And then when the bell rings again, we go home. And everything goes back to the way it was before. I mean, it's the inertia of that life forever.
Well, and that's it. I mean, if you're one of the 10,000 people that selected to be dancers in this ceremony, it's your job. And it's really easy to remember dance moves when getting shot in the face is the alternative.
Absolutely right.
Right? Yeah.
I mean, it's a life of duress. You know what's fascinating? You know what's going to be fascinating? Because at some point, this is all going to end. It's just going to, just the way things happen, right? I may or may not be around for that. Whatever. The fascinating thing to me is going to be to do some genetic studies of what generations of poverty and stress do to the epigenetic switches that reside in the genetic code of human beings. Because the pictures that I've seen are very fascinating of a South Korean guard standing next to a North Korean guard at the DMZ, and it's like the guy's a head taller than the other. And I know for a fact, like shit there in the 90s was bad. Like nobody had any food. There was bad things happening there. I won't get into details, but it was bad shit. And I know I recently read that they're in a drought condition again, so it's got to be horrible there.
Sure.
Even with all the renewed sanctions and everything. But I wonder what the purpose is of the sanctions at this point, because I don't think the sanctions are punishing anyone but the common people.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and of course, again, it comes back to rhetoric. I mean, Kim Jong-un very specifically said, if the sanctions continue, we're going to bomb you, right? And we dropped more sanctions, and he didn't bomb anybody.
Right.
But it is this, what's interesting is the parallel, and, the parallel between our two leaders, Kim Jong-un and Donald Trump, right? I mean,
it's dangerous territory.
It is, because the rhetoric and the reactions and everything we're talking about Kim Jong-un's weaknesses as a leader and as a reactionist to all of these things, the weird little parallel going on right now. This is what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Okay, so here's how I feel. I'm not going to say that much about Donald Trump just because.
No, and this really shouldn't be what it's about.
There are some. At first glance, looked at the two people, you would definitely see some. However, how those similarities came about and the strength of how those things happened in kind of different directions, right? Donald Trump was scion of wealthy family, right? And Kim Jong-un was, the God Emperor's son, right? There's a lot of similarities there. But I think that what's fascinating about the difference between men is that one has a very measured response. Kind of think that that's words coming out of his mouth, right? If you think he's the one that's really dictating things, which I don't really. But if he is the one who's dictating things, he has a fairly measured response. I truly and honestly do not believe that they are in any way, shape, or form trying to upset the apple cart that they have. I think that all of this is saber rattling. I do not think that there is a credible threat there. I think that they do things to show off for their own people, but we're just a audience by accident almost. Like they don't give a shit about us other than to make us the enemy. They don't really need a real enemy. They have enough of a boogeyman enemy, and that's all they want is a fake enemy. Because I don't think those guys want anything to change there. Humans very rarely act outside of their best interest, and their best interest is to maintain the level of kind of hoodwinked. They've got the population controlled, and I think everything they do is about controlling the population of North Korea and very little to do with anything outside of that. I just really feel strongly in my gut that that's how that shit works. Donald Trump, man, he's an interesting dude. Put it that way. I did not vote that way. I voted libertarian because I don't like either party at all, or any party.
And it's your right to
at all.
But a protest voting.
But I will say this: that Donald Trump is the president, like it or not, and so I cannot say I agree with a lot of the things he does. Very many at all. But I also need to keep away from that.
Understood. My only point was,
there's definitely
the potential for a perfect storm situation. There's not, in my opinion, it's not a coincidence that in the last 6 months, Kim Jong-un has fired more missiles, I believe, than his father in its entirety.
Yeah,
right. This acceleration,
but also you have to
being fueled,
and I got you
back and forth,
right, with Donald Trump,
back and forth,
and I don't think that. See, okay, they're going back and forth, but why? What's the purpose? Right? He's inciting them, but who's seeing that? Their people, his people, the people he's trying to control.
I think Kim Jong-un has I don't know. I'm guessing here. 2 fronts, right? I mean, he's trying to control the worldview of himself and his regime. His way, not in a way that maybe makes sense to us, but in a way that makes a lot of sense to him. And he's also, to your point, trying to control that information flow to his people, which is not hard to do. I mean, this decades of conditioning. He's
harder than one might think, though.
He's
because there are
feeding his people with what he wants to feed his people with. They don't have a lot of ways to cross-check that.
No, they don't.
Power doesn't even run far from the palace in this country. It's the darkest country on the planet.
It is, yeah.
Right? Power is at the palace, and maybe a couple select generals. Maybe.
Oh, yeah.
Right? If he wishes
them to have
city.
It. Right? Yeah, it's in the capital city.
So the worldview is the tougher part for him, and he's just trying to be strong. He's trying to be this. He's trying to puff his chest.
Right.
And to some degree, so is our guy. Right.
Absolutely.
So I think what happens is, without secession, without us saying, you know what, be a nuclear power, but let's talk about that, right? And let's be, I don't think that's necessarily the way to go. I think we're probably way far past that, but without something like that occurring, I think you're going to see a lot more of this stuff over the next few months from Kim. I think it's going to be a lot more.
Okay, well, I'm gonna play devil's advocate.
Yeah,
because this is my funny fun time, right? What purpose does it serve? What benefit does Kim Jong-un get from, say, we have a sane individual in office who wants to sit down with them and say, look, here's the thing. I'm not going to take your nuclear weapons away. You built that shit yourself, developed yourself. Keep it. Just keep it. Okay? But let's agree that you're not going to give it to anybody else. You're not going to give the technology to anybody else. And that you're going to have a limit, right? You can have 3 nukes or 5 nukes or whatever. You can join Pakistan and India. Same deal, right? Don't blow anybody up. Don't give it to a terrorist. And shut your mouth, right? It's just, what does he gain from that?
Well, for him, it's a victory. I mean,
Why?
because the world he lives in, it's a victory, right? Because the world doesn't want him to have one. He didn't back down, and now he has one. I don't.
Yeah, but if he doesn't sit down at the table, the world didn't want him to have one, and he still has one. There's no net gain there. He has it no matter what. No one can take it away from him.
I also think the Seventh Fleet is powerful. Our country is powerful,
right?
I think to some degree he also knows that he has us by the balls, and I'll
got
explain
not just us by the balls, but pretty much everybody.
Right. So he's geographic location. He is in a pretty good spot to run his fucking mouth, And here's why: if we conventionally go after North Korea, he's going to obliterate Seoul. So how many South Koreans are we going to be willing to sacrifice to make our point? If we drop, which I've heard this 1,000 times, just drop a nuke on them, right? Immediately, look, the wind patterns in that area are south by southeast, right? So your fallout alone is going to kill millions of South Koreans and Japanese. How many South Koreans and Japanese are you willing to sacrifice to make your point? That also probably starts.
It just
World
starts
War III, right? I mean,
no, it pretty much ends World War III, because at that point, what happens is the economy completely and utterly collapses, because no one will be able to fulfill the needs and requirements of, number one, all the fishing industry that will be gone,
sure.
All the farming that will be gone, all of the technology and innovation and manufacturing capability that will be gone. So no one survives that, right? No one does. But again, what is in his best interest? What is in Kim Jong-un? His best interest is served by maintaining the status quo, right? By rattling the saber just enough so that people won't, so that nobody comes across the DMZ. Because the moment he looks weak is the moment that those guys come across the DMZ.
Absolutely.
Right? Okay, so think about it that way.
Well, and they also come at him from the other side, mind you.
Which side?
He can't look weak to his own people.
Exactly. Right. See, that's the thing. So he's got to look strong in front of both internally and externally, but only strong enough that no one will come for him. See what I'm saying?
Right.
And so they realize that, you said he's not a dumb guy. He realizes that the technology level is raising to the point where they're going to be able to get him, regardless, with something, eventually. You see what I'm saying? Whether it be a drone strike. You see where I'm going with this?
Absolutely.
So they're speeding up their program and saying, look, come for me and I'm going to make your world fit.
Sure.
But he only wants us to stop at that point. You see what I'm saying? He just wants us to leave him alone.
He's playing a delicate game.
It's very delicate. It's very, very delicate. But tipping it in one way or the other does not serve his best interest, nor the interests of any of the people who advise him. They wish to keep their pawn just as much as we wish to keep ours.
I mean, I highly doubt there's a lot of people advising him.
Oh, I absolutely think there are. Absolutely. You see the coterie of dudes with medals from the top of their chest and on their shoulders and on their pants and everywhere else. All those guys have been around for a long fucking time, and they have white knuckled the fuck out of the power structure in there.
Sure.
And what he says goes, probably to a certain point, and he probably is very aware.
I always imagine that those guys are just void of any real major mistakes at this point. As soon as they make one, get their throats slit in the middle of the night.
Everybody's walking it's the same thing that's in China.
But I think Kim Jong-un is tremendously disciplined in his own agenda, right? I mean, I think that he spends countless. If
he
he
wouldn't.
needs something from somebody, he's gonna advice. He'll probably ask, right? But you know that delicate wire that he's walking on, not trying to tip too far in either direction. You know, I when you control your situation almost in its entirety, I mean, you know, your chess game becomes a little bit easier to predict step by step. I mean, maybe not from the external part, but I feel like he knows that. I think he knows his limit, what he can get away with,
right?
Because he knows he has everybody by the balls.
Yeah,
and I think we're going to see once he, you know, the immaturity. This is where I come back to the immaturity. He's still pretty new at this job. I mean, he's young. He's not. I mean, he's been God for say 6 years. I don't know.
No,
I'm guessing.
See, he's been God his whole life. He's been God his whole life. Remember, he's been God his whole life, and so was his father.
Right. But he's still immature. He's still going to
but I think immature is something that's going to forever be built into his personality, because I think that people who are third generation God emperors don't struggle very hard.
Right.
And I think that really what brings maturity is struggle. And so if you want to look at your parallels,
so your guess is
between our current commander in chief and Mr. Jong-un, that is probably the greatest one there is. Neither of them have struggled very hard.
See, my guess is as soon as things calm down, at least from a media standpoint, you know, I think he's just gonna do it again. I don't think he, you know, to your point, right? You know, about the Apple Cart.
Could be.
You know, my only disagreement there is, you know, to really maintain your apple cart, you just fuck up. Be in the middle of the crowd somewhere. You're not going to continue to want to be in the international media every single week about doing something.
I would love.
So I think there is another agenda here.
I guess. I don't know. I think everything that he does motivated by this need to maintain delicate flower that they have created in North Korea. I just don't think they're stupid enough to incite anyone enough that they're going to get invaded, but I don't think that they can look weak enough to get invaded. Do you see what I'm saying? I would love to look back. I kind of have this feeling too, where I would love to look back and see what North Korea was doing when Obama got elected, like not long after he was the first year of his presidency.
Sure, it'd be interesting information
because
data.
I feel like this escalation could also be them feeling out what their limits are with our current president, right? Inciting him just enough to see what his reaction is, to see how far they can go, to see how tight of a tightrope they have to walk, right? So if you've got a new guy that you're dealing with, like in prison, you walk in, you punch him in the face, right?
The biggest guy,
right?
In the
You
yard,
go
right?
find the biggest guy in the yard,
and
you go punch him in the face to prove that you're whatever, that you're not to be fucked with or whatnot. But that could be it too. I kind of feel like that might be part of it, right? The how far can I push this dude before he really starts to get bonkers, right? And he's figured out you can't push him very far.
So I think it's going to be interesting, and as it plays out, you know, I'm sure my opinion changed again. I make no. I'm not an expert on these things. I'm watching as the rest of the world watches, right?
Absolutely.
And applying my own imagination and
right.
thought process to it, but. if
Well-
if things are going to die down, I agree with you. I don't think next week they're going to like set off another Skittles truck. I just think that at some point it's going to die down, and I don't think Kim Jong Un's going to like that. If he's continuing to say, "Look at me, look at me, look," I think there's another agenda. At that point, I believe it's I'm the third generation. I think my father and my grandfather were just not as savvy as me, and I'm going to be better, and I'm going to make sure everybody knows I'm better and more powerful and more in your face, right? And I think, and when I say I think there's another agenda, it may be something as simple as that, right? Because I can't put myself into his world. I can't. There's it's not even possible. So I don't know. We'll see.
I don't know either. It's going to be really interesting to find out.
But you know what? I'm actually really, really interested in what I believe should be kind of the second half of our show today.
Okay.
Right?
So
because you have this thing, and I'm just going to sort of introduce it because I don't know a ton about it, and I'm not going to get into any detail. But you have this rather fantastic theory involving some very powerful people in this world.
We're going to preface all of this, right? Okay. First of all, we're going to talk about conspiracy theories for a minute because I don't believe in conspiracy theories. Okay? I am not a conspiracy theory guy. It just doesn't compute to me. Okay? A secret is only a secret if you don't tell anybody. Okay? The minute you tell somebody a secret, it's not a secret anymore. Okay? 2 people can probably keep a secret. 2 people can keep a secret if they're dedicated. 3 people cannot keep a secret. There's no fucking way. Because if you're the third person, you're always thinking about what are the other 2 people talking about.
Yep.
Conspiracy of 2 works. Conspiracy of 3, not going to work. So, 9/11, inside job, all that shit. Show me the fucking evidence, right? That being said, I have a conspiracy theory. But it's not really a conspiracy theory. It's so this is going to be me literally talking out of my ass for the next hour.
Okay.
It's just stuff that I've noticed and I've looked at and has kind of made me amused and has made other people freak out when things happen. So the 6 oligarchs of America, current, right? We're entering into what would, I don't know, people are calling it the 4th Industrial Revolution, whatever you want to call it. I believe that we're moving into the next phase of manufacture product. You can call it the Industrial Revolution. Call it that. I'm going to call it the Resource Revolution because resources are going to become much more plentiful than they have in the past. And so what's fascinating about this is the people who have been powerful in the past have been the ones who control the resources, right? So if you look back at people like J.P. Morgan and Rockefeller and those guys, the robber barons during the Industrial Revolution the first time, they controlled things like coal and gold and railroads and transportation and things like that. They were the oligarchs. They held the keys to the kingdom. Currently, we are experiencing that recurrence where people like Jeff Bezos and Mark Zuckerberg and Elon Musk, Eric Schmidt and Sergey Brin and Larry Page, those guys are the 6 American oligarchs of the resource revolution.
Just to help our viewers, can you do the same thing with the companies, right?
Okay, so that would be Facebook, Amazon, Google, and Elon Musk's multiple companies, SpaceX, Tesla, which are all actually tied together. So, this is my crazy theory. Jeff Bezos has taken on the role of logistician, right? He handles all the products, meaning he is going to supply everyone with everything, and has, at this point, entered into that kind of industry. He didn't build... At first he built a bookstore, and then he parlayed a bookstore into a marketplace. Okay, because Amazon is no longer a store; it's a marketplace. People like you and I sell on Amazon. They make money on Amazon, and it's actually turned into what eBay should have been, right? Because eBay is shit now.
Mind you, real quick too. I mean, what an impact on the world he's had. I mean, this isn't just he made a website,
and this is, it gets even deeper when you look at how the whole thing connects together, right?
I mean, we're talking about getting rid of brick and mortar stores here in the next
couple
decades.
Last week we talked
because of this,
right? Well, last week we talked about the fact that the time is pretty much approaching very, very quickly where you will not have to leave your house. Period. You just don't.
I did not mean to interrupt.
No, you're fine. So Jeff Bezos has taken pretty much the role of logistics. Like, he can get anything, anywhere, anytime, fast and cheap, right? Like, he can get it. He can get you what you want. So, and then there we go.
Wouldn't be a show if you didn't knock that up.
I know.
This is now tradition.
So let's get to Google, right? So as we call it Alphabet now, Larry Page, Sergey Brin, and Eric Schmidt. I think that there is no doubt in anyone's mind what they're trying to achieve. They are trying to achieve artificial intelligence. That is the goal of Google. That has been the goal of Google. Probably not long after they realized what they had. How do you teach an AI? You feed it the entirety of the internet,
all of it.
The project crap, the Gutenberg project, right? Where Google scans in every book that they can find that is in the public domain, and they scan it into their hard drives. They scan it into their computer. They scan it into their network. And if you don't think that those AI are able to have access to all of that data, you're fooling yourself.
And read them really fast.
Right? I kind of like that approach. Let the AI learn about us from our literature. I think that's a great approach because it gives them some context on what humanity has had to accomplish and where we've been and how we get there. And if they ever achieve consciousness, they'll have that. And they'll
What's
be able
valuable.
to see, right, what we value and how we truly feel about certain things. I think that's a good approach. But again, this is what they're trying to control, the flow of information, right? That is the resource, right? The resources being actual resources with Jeff Bezos, who's doing the logistics of actual hard resources, and Google, who's doing the data part of that, right? And they're all developing their own AI. You could include Microsoft in this, but I don't know that. He fits into that category. You know what I mean? He's more on the philanthropic side. He's gone that way. We're going to get back to that later. Larry Page, Eric Schmidt, Google, they're going to control the inflow of information. They're going to make it possible for us to do robotics and AI, and they were really heavy into robotics, but then they changed tack, right? And they got rid of Boston Dynamics and gone in a different direction. I think that they realized that there was some kind of realization there that they had, that Boston Dynamics went down a different road than they felt that they could go down. One of the other things that Google done is they have hired Ray Kurzweil. Right? Ray Kurzweil is a futurist, and he's written books, and he's a really, really, really super smart guy. One of those guys who you don't really see a lot of until fairly recently, but was always back there. Like, I think when he was really young, he invented like the synthesizer, right? Like, invented crazy stuff that people use on a daily basis, and really super smart guy, right? Well, Ray Kurzweil has become, well, I don't know if he's become obsessed, but is obsessed with longevity, right? So he believes that and is a very firm believer and is actually putting a lot of effort into solving the problem of aging, which we've talked about before, right? So if you're building an AI that's going to help you cure aging, right? That is a very integral part of humanity moving forward, the ability to live a lot longer, because any kind of voyage into space, any kind of voyage off the planet, it take quite a while. Then we come to Elon Musk, who is the one who is going to get us off the planet, right? Of the power and transportation systems that he is in charge of. Okay, so this is Elon Musk's approach. He's the oligarch in charge of transportation and energy. Generate the power to run the transportation. Have it all in one, and it's all one encased kind of entity. What are you trying to achieve with that, right? Well, we know what he's trying to achieve to get us off the planet. He's been very open about what his general purpose is. Elon Musk wants to build a city on Mars by 2060, right? I think that's the goal. Well, in order to do that, he's going to need logistics. Jeff Bezos also happens to be involved in the idea of mining the asteroids, right? So if you're going to move off the planet, you're going to need resources, and you're going to need someone who knows how to distribute and gain and redistribute resources. So that's Jeff Bezos' role in all of it. Once you have the AI and the longevity, and you have a logistics network set up, and you have a way to get to Mars, then you leave, you move to Mars, you build a city, an underground transportation network that gets its power from the sun, that has a logistics network built with automation in mind. I get.
Absolutely.
So we have these 6 guys who seem to be working toward kind of the same effort, right? How does Mark Zuckerberg fit into all this? Facebook is nothing but a propaganda and people steering tool.
Sure, we've seen this recently. Right?
Yeah, I mean,
we've seen it since its inception, but much more recently.
Yeah, I mean, Facebook is ubiquitous now. Like, everybody looks at it. I mean, everybody does. It's right here, all the time. Right here, this thing that we carry around with us everywhere has Facebook on it when you buy it, right? It's the main. A lot of times it's the way most people get their news and how they communicate with each other. So he controls that. And if you have any doubt that there's any kind of moderation going on, you should know they are controlling what goes in and out of this thing. Now, when this all kind of tied together for me, right, that was, okay, so all these guys are doing these different things. How do you know that they're cooperating? Well, you remember when SpaceX, I believe it was one of the Falcon 9 rockets, when one of the Falcon 9 rockets blew up. Mm-hmm. It didn't happen that long, like last year, right? Well, that was supposed to be delivering satellites for Facebook. So Mark Zuckerberg had a payload on Elon Musk's rocket to try to do testing for an internet offering that they have. Facebook's going to offer free internet via like satellite.
Yeah, and the
Africa
planes
and stuff.
Also, right? The solar powered.
Yeah, they were talking about the solar powered planes too,
which might be providing free Wi-Fi to the world.
Exactly. So he's going to be doing the communication and propaganda network. So when you have someone who can steer public opinion towards whatever you want it to be,
absolutely.
And let's look at these guys, right? These are powerful dudes. You don't think that they've talked to each other? You don't think that they talk to each other on a fairly regular basis, maybe? I don't know. Again, it's a crazy, weird diatribe about crazy stuff. But to me, pieces are starting to line up, right?
And
So whether they mean it, whether they're complicit together with it or not, right? It looks like what they're trying to achieve is to get us off of this planet, or at least to move us into a place where the resources aren't quite as centralized. I don't know.
Well, you know, I mean, it's. I mean, I don't know. It probably the wrong is private sector that's really sort of. Look, these are all relatively. I mean, Elon Musk is a young guy. He's got a lot of life left to live and a lot of things to achieve. Zuckerberg, young guy, right? I mean, I guess my point is, you know, these people become very powerful, very influential, inspirational. I mean, you name it, right? I mean, you know, you can
These are
point out.
These are the successes.
Google's had, you know, another thing that fascinates me is Google. I mean, they've had these tremendously ambitious side projects, right? Much beyond
the skunk works, basically.
Browsers,
right?
You know, the things that we know about, they've been, you know, they don't scream it from the mountaintop. You can go onto Google and you can click the more button and you can really dive deep into what they want us to know they do, right? But you know, I mean, you're talking about guys who have a lot of money, a lot of power, a lot of great ideas. They also don't seem to be they seem to be willing to risk you know, money, right? I mean, these aren't guys that are going to say, I mean, you know, this is too risky, I don't want to lose my money on it. They're going to go for it. They're going to go for it hard. They're going to have failures.
Yeah.
You know, but they're, you know, tremendously ambitious, I guess, you know, which, by the way, I think SpaceX Elon Musk recently dialed back the Mars thing. I think they're going to start on the moon, right?
On the moon. But still,
let's
come on, man. You got to admit that's the ultimate goal, right?
Like, of course, you know. Honestly, I think the ultimate. I mean, by the way, we just found 3 more planets that are Earth-like that potentially could contain like life-giving water within. I think it's 12 light years of us, right? We found
TRAPPIST is 8.
Well, TRAPPIST is 8 light years, and there was 4 planets in the Goldilocks zone. We just found 3 more last week.
Oh, really?
Yeah, 12 light years away. This is not going to. I mean, this is only going to fuel that fire. I mean, you know, these are potential homes within reasonable amounts of distances, which are still massive distances, but reasonable.
I want to go there. I want to be one of the guys that sets foot on another planet. I really do. Believe me. No one wants that more than I do. The problem is that there's going to be a really rough period of time between now and when we have the ability to go to the places that you and I want to go to. And I think that that's what the important part of all of this is, that we have to be careful that these guys don't steer us down the wrong path, right? We have to be, and in order for us to kind of make sure that these powerful men, and I'm not saying that they're in cahoots or that they have a plan or any of that stuff, but what I am saying is this: they are powerful people who are really not beholden to a lot of restriction, so to speak, which can be a good thing, but also can be a very bad thing.
Absolutely.
So we need to keep an eye on what's happening.
Well, I'm going back to starting with the moon instead of Mars. I mean, the reason is, you know, the SpaceX plan to get to Mars involved much larger rockets and larger ideas, frankly, than NASA and the rest of the world was ready to allow to happen, right? So, to me, yes, the moon's closer, right? The logistics and all, it's not a. I mean, there's some distance issues, right? I mean, Mars is 60 million miles away, right?
Right.
The moon's much closer. So there's going to be it's going to be easier to some degree, but the logistics, the math, the things learned to get to the moon and colonize the moon can really pretty easily be translated into
Right.
Mars. I think the moon is more about, once we're off this planet, now we're gonna have less restrictions, right? I mean, because if I'm on this planet and I'm filing permits with the FFA to shoot large rockets into orbit or wherever, I mean, they don't have a lot of restrictions, but they do have some.
Right. They go to the moon and then they don't have any.
I don't think they would have dialed back Mars had it not been for some realizations that there's safety issues that are being applied to SpaceX's plan to start with Mars. So,
right.
You know, I think that only supports your theory in a way, right? I mean, sometimes ideas are bigger than...
They're looking to do this fast, is what you're saying.
Right. I think that's the fastest route. I mean, again,
I mean, you look at some of the things that Elon Musk himself has said, right? We're all in this sinking ship together, and if we don't start bailing together, we're all going to sink together. Mm-hmm. And I think that he's kind of... I mean, he said it, right? He said, the only reason I'm gathering wealth is so that I can leave this planet.
Right.
I mean, he has made that abundantly clear that is the plan.
Right.
Jeff Bezos has made it abundantly clear that he plans on mining asteroids. Okay. Those are closer to Mars than they are to the Earth.
Yep.
You know, I don't know, man. I think that, like I said, there's a really rough road between here and there we're going to have to overcome. I've seen some really exciting research in the last couple weeks. Some things happened this week that were just straight up nutty. There was the story that I put up on my page was about nanites they had developed that will drill into cancer cells.
Which is fascinating.
Yeah. So I think that in order for this to happen, there are some advances that we have to make. I mean, here in the moon, it's great thing about Earth is that it's a really hospitable environment. Bad thing about anywhere else is that it is a very extremely unhospitable environment. I think in order to be able to adapt to the environments that we're going to have to adapt to, there are going to have to be some changes genetically, right? So that's where CRISPR and all that stuff comes.
Sure.
I think that also our ability to create things is going to have to change, because mining asteroids and then converting that into something useful is hard.
My guess is you're edging towards probably nanotechnology then.
Nanotechnology, and not even just nanotechnology, but materials technology, to the point where we can make something from something else, right? At atomic rearrangement, whatever you want to call it. And those are the material, those advances in being able to allocate resources and produce those resources into usable goods. I think that we've got some place to go there first before we can honestly make a successful colony somewhere else. I think what's interesting about that is that it is a very disruptive technology. That's what I was talking about with the this isn't so much of an industrial revolution as it is a resource revolution, because we are learning to use our resources better, right? And the more we are able to manipulate our resources and use them in a more efficient manner, the cheaper everything, right? The more we automate tasks and automate the production of things, right? So I saw a story this week about something that looks like this. It's a new robotic sewing machine, Okay. It sounds stupid. Okay, a sewing machine that's robotic, that can't be new, right? I mean,
Right.
but the important thing about this one is that it can sew a t-shirt. Well, that sounds stupid too. Sewing a t-shirt should be really super easy, right? I could do that. No, it's really fucking hard, apparently. Well, but this machine is the first one that can do it. It's the size of like those flatbed scanners, right? So you throw the t-shirt on there and it sews the t-shirt. Well, it takes a human being like 30 times longer to sew a t-shirt than this machine does. So all of a sudden, a t-shirt that cost $1.50 now costs 33 cents. That's what I'm talking about with the.
Absolutely.
You're going to be able to go to Walmart. You can go to Walmart right now and buy pretty much whatever the fuck you want. It ain't going to be great, but it's cheap, right? If I want a cheap set of table and chairs, I'll go to Walmart and get a cheap set of table and chairs. Artisanal set of table and chairs. I'll go down to Ron Swanson's shop and have him craft me some if I can afford that. That's where we're headed, right? That's a bump in the road. It's a big bump. Because all of a sudden, you've got t-shirts that are made by robots that cost 33 cents. But that 33 cents, while it saves the t-shirt company a shit ton of money, puts however many Southeast Asian women out of work because they're not sewing t-shirts anymore. Okay. So where are they going to go work now? Are they going to go sew sneakers? No, because they have a machine now that adheres sneakers together with a robot. So now they need 1/10 of the employees for sneakers. Well, shit. I've been sewing for the last 20 years. All I really know how to do is sew. I don't really know how to read that good. I got probably 6 kids. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Like, that is a big bump in the road.
It is, and it's got to tilt, it's got to break, it's got to be repaired, and then we can maybe like take a look after that.
Right. I mean, we're still reaping the repercussions of the first industrial revolution, where things didn't get back to normalcy for like years. Now, this one might be even more disruptive, but I think we might even be able to bounce back a little bit faster. Or maybe not bounce back at all. That's the big fear, right?
Well, it's clear things are changing very fast, especially from a technology standpoint. I mean, it's been moving very fast, and it's going to continue to move even faster. I get alerts on my phone 24 times a day.
Right.
Some amazing thing we discovered. It's every day, right? I mean, this is going to continue, and honestly, I mean, a lot of these discoveries are really sort of byproducts of larger studies. We're really going after this, but guess what we found in the process, and this is really, really neat. CRISPR is one of these. CRISPR is going to become tremendously controversial over the next 5 years.
It's already, I mean, it's already there, but it's going to, once people really understand what the impact of CRISPR is, people are going to freak out.
Understanding and embracing are two totally different things. I can still put 20 people in a room, and just to give the benefit of the doubt, 5 of them probably going to know what CRISPR is.
Right.
So CRISPR is, I think it's going to become more mainstream conversation.
Since for all of our 11 people that are watching,
let's explain what CRISPR is.
Let's give a real quick rundown of what CRISPR is. Okay, so CRISPR-Cas9 is a mechanism within bacteria to help replace pieces of damaged RNA. Okay, so in the layman's terms, it's genetic manipulation.
Yep.
It's they take a piece of your genetic code out, right, and they recode it. So what it has been used for so far is sickle cell anemia. So what they've done in clinical trials is edit out the part of people who are afflicted with sickle cell anemia. They have edited out the part of the genome that causes that disease and replaced it with a normal part of their genetic code so that they do not have sickle cell anymore.
And so the potential
genetic repair.
The potential for this, though, right, is much broader. This is potentially going to one day let me decide my child looks like. It's going to cure potentially genetic
I mean,
disease. Have you seen the horse running in the cell? Have you seen this story?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I did.
So this is one of the weirdest stories about CRISPR. Just to check this out. The the researchers were able to embed DNA with a moving picture, a moving photograph, right? I mean, it's kind of fun to see how this goes back toward the first video ever seen was a running horse.
Right.
We've now been able to insert a moving picture. I think it was 8 frames of a horse running into DNA. I think they waited a couple days and then went back to see if it would read back out the same way, and it did. And I think the big joke was, why? What the hell's the point, right? The study is really about if one day can we have your body record what is going on within itself to sort of self-diagnose in a sense, right? I mean, this is really what the long-term goal of this is. But CRISPR is pretty neat or pretty creepy. It really depends on what angle you're looking at it from. I think it's pretty neat, right?
It's pretty neat. It's really super scary. Yeah. I mean, when I think about the potential that it has, it's a tool like any other tool. It's a really super powerful tool, because I think that the thing that makes it the most dangerous, the most dangerous part about CRISPR-Cas9 is that it's super easy to do. It's easy. It's on a scale of things that are hard to do, like scientifically. That's not hard. There's kits, like they're sending kits to like high schools and stuff. So it's not hard. One of the things I did see with some of the work that's being done on it was some danger of mutation, right? Some kind of unintended consequences of the manipulation that's happening. So I think that they're in the early stages with this. There really needs to be a lot more.
What's scarier is when the mutations aren't unintentional, right? I mean, because you could really really perfect this into a sort of a super soldier. It's right. Even... I mean, these things, the potential is almost infinite when you really start to get into it, right? So as a tool, it can be used to bash someone's head in, or it could be used to cure someone's bashed in head.
Exactly.
Right. I mean, this is going to become much more controversial over the next 5 years. I mean,
absolutely.
Really, and
without a shadow of a doubt, because there are people who were talking about it last year who were afraid.
But it kind of ties into the point of you saying we're going to have to make some changes before we just jump on Mars, right? Now, I see that as there's probably many paths, but I see 3 paths, right? I mean, I see probably the safer one, which is to have sort of surrogate robots being manipulated by a VR helmet here on Earth and building a colony for us, through us, by us.
When we get there, we can be safe.
Right. There's, of course, this sort of genetic route, which I think is sort of the other 2 paths combined, just sort of sub-paths of each other. I mean, is it easier to start growing like babies now that can survive in space, or is it easier to take human beings and try to figure that out that already exists? I mean, so maybe none of these things are going to happen, but I just think you're right. I mean, to have a bunch of humans up on Mars in massive spacesuits that if I even trip and prick a hole in this thing, my eyeballs are gonna explode from my face.
Right.
Really, really ups the ante on all of it. Really makes it all way more expensive, take way longer. So I think you're right, absolutely. Before we colonize Moon, Mars, there's gonna have to be.
Well, I think it's already happening.
A safe way to do it.
Well, the way I
to do it.
I mean, let's just jump right fucking down the rabbit hole. Okay, I'm going to tell you exactly how I see this happening. Okay. Carbon nanotubes.
Sure.
Supposed to be the wonder material that brings us into the future, right?
Yeah, I got a neat story about that later.
I read a passing article. I didn't get as deep into it as I wanted to, saying that they've figured out a way to make them plentifully cheap and easy. The minute that happens, things change. Okay, that's when the clock starts ticking, because when you take all of these things converging together, all of these converging techniques, direct interface, it's a race. It really is. I mean, it's a complete race. Quantum computers, quantum computers, carbon nanotubes, artificial intelligence, spaceflight. When you mix all of these things together that are happening all at once, augmented reality, virtual reality, making such good strides. I think that the materials will catch up, meaning carbon nanotubes, whatever they need to build for quantum computers. That's, I think, where the research is really being concentrated right now. The minute that we have quantum computers, I think we need the carbon nanotubes, get the quantum computers, and then when we get the quantum computers, we'll be able to get the AI.
Right.
And then when we get the AI, it's a race between get the AI first or get the direct interface first. I think that one will cancel the other out. Because the minute you connect direct interface, connect a human being to a quantum computer, direct interface, and they can process, like co-process.
There's no real need for AI
at that point. No, there isn't, because we can feed it all the questions we want, and it will be able to find the answers to those questions we need. And then there it becomes, all right, well, I have my own quantum computer that is directly interfaced with my brain. Really, can you get at me at that point?
Right.
I think we need the quantum computers before we have direct interface. From a survival perspective. Because I think if we try to direct interface with something less than that, I think that we'll just fuck it up really badly. I think in order to be able to handle the things that we're going to want to be able to handle, and be able to engineer the thing that we have to engineer in order to have direct interface, I think we're going to need a quantum computer to be able to understand the things that we need to understand in order to interface correctly. Right now, as it stands, we can move arms, we can move things around. What does that tell you about the human brain, right? Like, that thing is super powerful in there, that little meat chunk in there. Like, understands things that it shouldn't. You know what I mean? Like, how do you communicate with a machine? How are we able to do that? How are we able to the electricity in your brain connects to the electricity of the computer. How is it that we're able to adapt that quickly to those things? I mean, that kind of the amazing engineering that had to go into something like that. You know what I mean?
And it's for me just as hard to understand the brain as it is a computer. I mean, these are complex things. The quantum computer is in the lifespan of humanity is right around the corner. I think we're making strides all the time. Recently, made some very big movement on the next generation almost wrong to call it microchip, right? But I didn't realize because I use microchips the way most people use microchips, right? I touch a screen and it does something, but I didn't realize we're really sort of at the limit of microchips at this point.
Yeah, right? They're talking Moore's law and all that stuff.
Right.
Where,
but recently, there were some tremendous strides made, sort of next generation of what's going to,
right?
And that was I think a massive leap forward. That's something now we're playing with this, and we're going to research this, and we're going to dump all of this, and I think it ends up computers.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the ultimate goal of all of these chip makers, is to get to a place where they have a stable quantum computer, because that's kind of the holy grail, as it stands right now.
Neat story I heard this week, by the way. Did you hear the story about the nanotubes in the spider water?
I did, and that was awesome.
Actually wasn't nanotubes. It was another hexagonal sort of micro.
Buckyball. Was it buckyballs?
Material that they.
I know it was carbon. I know they fed the spider water laced with some kind of carbon.
Right, and so the spider spins a web.
Yeah,
capable of holding the weight of a human being.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy,
right?
Isn't it?
I mean, I was like, I'm sorry, man, but that's some pretty cool shit.
That's crazy to me, right?
I love that stuff. I mean, again, though, I still think it's a byproduct of a larger study of.
Yeah, right? I mean, once we understand that, we're really starting to understand really well how the materials that we have work, right? There were some strides made with making a zinc oxide battery. I mean, what could be better than that? There's Jesus Christ, man. I mean, it's the cheapest thing ever, right?
Well, and it's just power. To your point earlier of the machine doing the T-shirt, right?
Right.
I mean, if we can do the same with power, if we can make it cheaper and smaller to hold massive amounts of energy that also doesn't radiate our brains, I mean, because
I think
power, energy, resource. I mean, all of these things are smaller puzzle pieces that are going to be put together at some point and achieve a large goal.
Okay, so this ties into what we were talking about before, right? Elon Musk and Solar City, right? The solar roof that he has come up with. I thought it was a brilliant idea, and I'll tell you why.
This is the shingles in a sense that generate power.
Yeah, so he had this company, Solar City, and it merged with Tesla, and became part of Tesla because of the battery and all that stuff. So Tesla has their Powerwall product, right, which is just the Tesla battery that hangs on the wall that gets power from the solar panels that Solar City sells you that you put on your roof, right? Okay. So what was interesting to me when this all started to happen back a couple years ago, and I looked at what he was doing, I thought it was kind of brilliant. Power distribution historically has always been AC because of the way that AC transmits, right? You can transmit AC through longer lines than you can through DC. DC is better because all of the shit that we work with and that we uses DC. So that's why you have all these wall warts, right? It's converting the AC to DC.
Right.
Tesla, Nikola Tesla, came up with a way to do alternating current so it could be transmitted farther. But he also came up with a way to wirelessly transmit power.
Mm-hmm.
Nikola Tesla wanted, and this is the way I understand it, and it could be wrong, he wanted power to be more distributed, right? Thomas Edison saw profit in it if it were not distributed and if it were centralized.
And Tesla was shut down.
And Tesla was shut down. I mean, Tesla was shut down from a lot of
Nikola Tesla.
Yeah. Thomas Edison did horrible things to Nikola Tesla. I think that's a pretty, well-established fact at this point that he wasn't really a very nice person. But we won't get into that. Point being that I think that Elon Musk saw that couldn't continue to centralize power distribution. That the future of human race is distributed. What I mean by that is power needs to be distributed. Data needs to be distributed. We need to kind of do away with some of the centralized power structure we have. I mean, just from an information perspective and from a power perspective, like power, electricity, and from a resource perspective, we need to decentralize those. Because by centralizing them, we have built things like Exxon and, Mobil and all these big oil companies and OPEC built these huge power structures, and these big power structures are what are moving the puzzle. And as you decentralize and as you distribute these power structures, that power becomes distributed amongst individuals and in smaller little puddles rather than this big lake. And so I think that slowly but surely he is trying to decentralize and take the power away from some of these power companies, because when you empower people to generate their own electricity and their own resources, and you empower them to do things for themselves and make them their own kind of entity, a stronger entity that doesn't have to be answerable to these other little nagging things, you end up with a better kind of person and a better kind of fabric of culture, because these people are seeing themselves as proactive instead of reactive. So it's a psychological change to a certain extent that we all need to go through, where humanity needs to shift from this kind of passive reactivity that we've had such a long time to kind of this a proactive approach to, okay, look, we've got to live in this place. We have to plan this. Because if we don't plan what we do from here forward, we're not going to make it. We haven't been planning up to this. Like, remember when you were in your 20s and you got money, right? And you just kind of like, okay, I got money. And then about a week and a half later, you didn't got any money anymore. And so you had to go back and get some more money. Okay, that's reactive. Proactive is saying, all right, well, I got this money. Some of it I'm going to put over there. So bad shit happens, I got something to fall back on.
Yeah, Elon Musk going to end up with a lot of enemies. This is going to threaten a lot of people, right? This is going to threaten the Exxons. It's going to threaten the Edisons.
It already has.
Right?
I mean, what did all the car companies say to him? Oh, you're never going to be a success.
Right. The tube system, the underground tube system that moves vehicles across the country at 200 plus miles an hour, right? I mean, these ideas are not small ideas. These are big ideas. They're being moved forward on as well. Yeah. Right? I mean, and it's something that has to happen in a sense. I mean, do we need a tube system? I don't know. I've never studied that whole thing, but I imagine we need it, right?
You need a tube system on Mars.
Sure. That's my point, right? You need to know how to very efficiently tunnel. You have to learn a lot of these things in a much closer place so that you can then scale it up and decide what it needs to be out there. I understand that. This is, I guess, going back to the very beginning of this segment of the show. Please like and subscribe. It's hard to make an omelet without breaking an egg. There's going to, so this is going to play out here soon. I mean, right now, I don't know what kind of trouble Elon Musk already deals with threatening large industry. I'm sure it's already there, and I'm sure he's already dealing with it in form or another.
You know what's interesting, though? I think that it's what's fascinating to me, right?
Yeah.
All of a sudden, all these electric cars are coming out. I think he took them by surprise. I think that there's a lot of these, the older generation doesn't really believe that we can do the things that we say we're going to be able to do. My parents are older. They're 74 ish. the first day I walked into them and said, "Hey, do you know that at some point, the next decade or two, you're going to have the choice of whether you want to keep going and not die?" They looked at me like I had two heads.
Right.
So I don't know that he faces a lot of these things because I don't know that anyone
believes him.
Right.
And you might be right. Right. I mean, they're going to believe him
eventually
when they start losing money. Right.
I think they're starting to believe him now.
Honestly, I'm not sure that. I think in any way, shape, or form it's going to. Well, it's not going to deter him. I mean, he's tremendously devoted
absolutely.
to this.
I think that it does nothing but make him
right.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, big industry. Which, mind you, Thomas Edison, to your point, did really nasty things to Nikola Tesla, and yet we have thousands upon thousands of med ed trucks driving around to this day, checking everyone's electricity and charging them money for it. And these are powerful entities. That I do believe will start to disassemble slowly soon going forward. Not easily and not
quietly,
not with grace maybe, but I mean, look, the solar panel technology. No matter how much everyone tries to stuff it back down, I mean, can't get the toothpaste back into the tube at this point. There years ago we were already sort of talking about, solar panels this big doing the exact same thing that solar panels the size of a van can do. This is going to happen. It's going to force the power distribution to change.
And it already has. There's some legislation down in Florida, I think, is going on right now about making it a requirement for some of these houses to have solar panels, making it a requirement, like a building requirement.
So grouchy people are going to become more grouchy soon, but they're still not going to be able to stop it. I think it is very, very good for progress and very good, because to leave it on, you said something earlier. We all have to sort of believe that we have to change very soon if we're going to make it.
Right.
I think 99% of the world is ready and game because I'm just not sure.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think if I want to add a little bit to that. I agree with you, but I think that there's a lot of the 99% of the world doesn't know.
Right.
And I think that if they did know, and if they were presented with the information to say, hey, look, this is our possible future if we all kind of come together and understand, there's definitely going to be, right? There's definitely going to be those people who are going to be like, yeah, fuck that. But there's also going to be people who don't currently know what's happening, but who learn what's happening and who definitely, right? Like people are the same everywhere, right? You party with a guy in Vladivostok, you party with a guy in Phuket. It's the same kind of party. Fun. Everybody just wants to live their lives. And I think that if you present these things to these people who really just kind of want to be okay, safe, tell them, look, the world's going to get better. It's going to get a lot better. If we do some of the things that we're really close to figuring out how to do, the world's going to be better for everybody. Not all at once, but it's going to be eventually better for everybody.
Well, I mean, I think it almost plays out as sort of a grim fairy tale story. I mean, I really think that there's a lot of bad shit that has to happen in the process because we're human beings. We just don't know how to be void of that. But I think the 99% that are ready, they may not know what they're ready for, but I think you present them with something better, they're going to go for it.
Right. I do agree with you. They're ready for something better.
But the reason why the 1% isn't ready is because they have all the fucking money.
Yeah, you're talking about you're talking about the dudes who don't want anything to change because that changes their
time and time again. We've seen these guys squash great ideas because their old idea has been making them a lot of money for time.
Yeah.
In these people, these entities, I I think we're at a point where, I mean, the reason they can lobby and have all this money is because for a long time they've been doing things like squashing by Tesla with his brilliant ideas about how to wireless. And by the way, wireless electricity. I mean, we're not talking about wireless phone. We're talking about
I know,
setting
transmitting
something on
power.
my desk and it lights the fuck up without plugging it into a wall.
We can do that now, though. It's just in its infancy.
And still, we plug shit into the wall every day, right?
Well, but it's in its infancy.
The time is running out, and what's interesting with the movement of information, with the shingles that create power. I mean, we are taking the power back.
Right.
The 99%. It's slow and it's happening, and it's going to create a lot of grouchy people who probably still have plenty of money. They're just,
Well, and see, that's what it comes down to, right? And Bill Gates, I really admire. I didn't used to admire Bill Gates, but over the years I have, and I think that everybody has kind of come to the same kind of moment with Bill Gates, right? He was demonized back in the early 90s because of monopoly stuff, right? Because he had the best thing going.
Windows.
Right. And I get that. It was a little dirty. But then this guy evolves from, I think I don't know that his intentions were monopolized. I think his intentions were to, looking at the man now versus the way that it's him then, I think that his goal was to get power into these people's hands, right? To sell a product, to say, look, I've got this thing that can make your life really cool, right? And Bill Gates is a nerd. I mean, he is a nerd, and he's a nerd's nerd, sure. Right? I love the guy. Nerd is not a sign of disrespect in any way, shape, or form.
It's an endearing term these days.
Exactly.
It's not the 80s anymore.
Right. But I really do think that some part of him was just trying to get the stuff out there, right? And so what you can see in the long term is that maybe his intentions weren't what we assumed they were, to be the top and to squeeze out all the competition. Maybe he was trying to get people's hands on the best thing that he
give them a tool.
Could give them, this tool that everyone should have. Because I mean, it kind of was what he did, right? He put this tool that revolutionized humanity in as many people's hands as he could fucking get it into. Yeah. And making sure that there was an internet browser attached to that is what got him in trouble. Being someone who wanted to disseminate a gateway to information. And now I might be ascribing much higher intentions to him than he actually had, but it's fun to do that, right? I mean, Bill Gates turns out to be this really philanthropic, good person, right? How far-fetched is it to believe that his intention really was to try to help people out and move humanity forward? And I think that whether it be inadvertent or not, I think that the 6 guys that we're talking about are trying to move humanity forward. And I think that that's what's important. I think that it's important for us to move forward, because if we don't, we're not going to exist anymore. And I think that that would be tragic, because as it stands right now, we are the only ones that we know of, right?
Yeah, that's it.
So, I mean, if we go, then that would be tragic, because there's no one to look at all of these amazing things that are around us, Yeah,
it really kind of makes it all in vain at that point.
And I think that if we just kind of, I really would love for humanity to just take a fucking week off. You know what I'm saying? Just everybody be like,
let's reassess,
all right, look,
reassess our
existence. Right, look, just January 1st through the 7th. Nobody do fucking anything. Just stop, right? Just stop, okay? Everybody stop. Everybody go outside. Look around at the snow or the sun or whatever the fuck is around wherever you are in January. Say, all right, look, it's 2018 and a lot of shit happened. Maybe it's time. Take a step back. take a week and take a break and just think all this through, right? Let's just wait and make some really important decisions together and say, all right, look, no more Nazis, all right? No more Nazis. We're not going to do that anymore. That's dumb. It's ridiculous. Just let it go, all right? No more Nazis. No more racism. It's ridiculous. There's no such thing as race anyway. There's just different colored people. Who cares? Stop. Just stop, right? In a week, we can get all this done. But seriously,
I love the way you think.
A lot of our problems are our own creation.
We can't get out of our own way.
Yeah, we need to get out of our own way, because if we don't, we're gonna fall, and it's gonna be tragic.
I think I really hope it's possible that one day, part of me is afraid that the balance of the universe requires half of us to hate the other half. Just because. Not because it's a smart thing for progression, but because the stars upon the stars, the Dr. Seuss book. This is my point.
Oh yeah, with if it's different, it's wrong.
Just need to be mad at you for something,
right?
I will figure it the fuck out.
Well, I mean,
just gonna be it anyways.
There's and see, this is where you say that, and I say that's why we need to learn to be able to turn the dials, right? Because the thing that's causing us to do that is a leftover evolutionary strategy that worked for us. It worked for us in the past, and if it didn't, we wouldn't still have it. Okay? But we don't need that anymore. We don't need that conflict and that psychological mechanism to dislike the other, right? I think we all need to kind of, I don't know how this can happen, and I really just don't have a fucking clue how it can happen, but we need to stop looking at each other as the other, because we're all human beings,
right?
And if we can't kind of get this shit under control, these little evolutionary idiosyncrasies that are no longer useful, right? Those are the things that are going to kill us. These little twitches that are left over from when we were running around barefoot with sharp sticks.
True.
I mean, we don't need that anymore, right? Honestly, the way the world is now, we could kind of achieve a place where everybody kind of gets what they need. Not necessarily all of what they want, but at least what they need, right? I mean, we could do that. Like, it's within the realm of possibility, but we would have to, like, want to do it.
You would have to change the mind of the masses. It's really, really tough.
It's not even about changing the minds of the masses, because there's some physiological component to that.
But there's going to be, the moment we can turn the dials, going to be, pardon me, half of the world's going to hate us for turning the dials. Now, at that point, people who turn the dials are going to outlive the people who hate us for it.
Right.
Because, and at that point, it's really more of an
Waiting.
exodus of,
right.
Maybe not of, but of mind. It's an exodus at that point. It's a look, we're doing this.
So that's a good story,
You
right?
can hate us for it, doing it.
But I think that's kind of what's being worked up to, right? Like, that kind of feels like what's being worked up to is these, like, I mean, we talk a lot about Elon Musk, but I mean, I think another interesting target who made himself much more, not target, but target for discussion, made himself much more interesting this week by buying Whole Foods.
Yes.
Jeff Bezos, right? Who has for years said that one of his goals was to get out there and mine asteroids. Has talked about it before Elon Musk started talking about, SpaceX.
Absolutely.
Like, this has been something that they've talked about for decades. But these guys, whether they are doing it with purpose or not, are inevitably going to push us in the direction that we need to go. Um, the question is whether or not they're going to meet resistance from the government side, because the government is very quickly losing its hold on the American people. The American people do not like
Agree.
their people, their chosen representatives right now. I mean, like Trump, Congress, all of them persona non grata with 99% of the United States population. I mean, whatever side you're on, most likely there's somebody in there you're really not happy with.
And it could be that you see it everywhere. You see it even with the police. That's and I'm not trying to bring up a whole other rabbit hole here.
Yeah, I don't even want to go down that one right now.
But and I'm not. I'm saying just general. Police aren't stopping a lot of people from doing a lot of things these days. The authority figures in general, the government in general, are we slowly starting to not, or at least feel like we don't need these
structures anymore? Well, I mean, I'm a big fan of Joe Rogan, right? I listen to his podcast quite a bit. One of the ideas that he's put forward is that the idea of the presidency itself, like that office, has lost its relevance, right? Like
I agree,
idea,
100%.
well, yeah, the idea that that one guy shouldn't have that much sway, which I 100% agree with. That one person should definitely not have that much sway. That sure as hell wasn't the way it was designed. It was designed that the president of the United States was the executor of the will of Congress, right? Congress came up with things that needed to be done, and then they passed a law saying, hey, this needs to be done, and so the president would say, all right, this is how we're going to get it done. That's not how that shit functions in any way, shape, or form anymore.
That train came off the rail.
Oh, way, way, way off the rails. So, and I don't know that there's a way to put the toothpaste back in the tube. Like, that was a great analogy, but I don't think that there's a way to do that with the way things are right now, as far as restoring the presidency back to what it was meant to be. I would love to see a council, more people, right? One each kind of area of importance. Technology, a minister of technology, a minister of health, a minister of blah 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 blah. I'm sure you can come up with probably, 6 positions that people could fill, right? But then there would have to be, the tiebreaker, the guy that is kind of the vote arbiter, right? I think that would be an interesting system. Maybe not. Maybe so. I don't know. I do know, though, that this duopoly of parties is definitely not working for us right now. It's not working for me.
Right. Well, and to me, it's really, really fundamental stuff. I mean, you cannot polarize views while also expecting a compromise. Compromise is going to be in the middle.
Right.
You can only bend one direction before you snap, and we just worse. We've even been doing it worse. You take a little piece of steel, you bend it one way, and then 8 years later you bend it the other way.
Mm-hmm.
Then 8 years later you bend it the other way. I mean, right?
It's not going to work.
It really, really starts to weaken that piece of steel, and it's going to break. The two party system is old ideas, old money, old corruption, which also makes it very powerful and very hard to remove.
Yeah. Well, and then you look at the thing that just happened with Gary Johnson and Jill Stein suing the debate committee because they weren't included, and they lost that case. I think that's pretty shitty. I think that to not be able to have an open dialogue with at least the people who are on the ballot. You know what I mean? Like, it's not that these were two candidates that didn't. Everybody says, oh, they didn't have a chance of winning. Okay, I don't give a shit. The fact of the matter was, they were on the ballot in all 50 states. At least I know Gary Johnson was. He was on the ballot in every state. Then he needs to be up there. I don't give a fuck.
Agree.
For 15%, 10%, whatever. I don't give a shit. If somebody's on the ballot in all 50 states, they should be up on the debate stage. Because obviously, some people thought it was important enough in each state to make sure that this person had a chance at the presidency. So obviously, somebody, a good contingent of people want to know what he has to say.
I think there's hope on the horizon. And I brought this up in a prior episode, I think regarding something. And you know, I think to some degree, everyone reaches a certain age where they just want to grumble about the younger generation, right? I mean, they're lazy, they're entitled, they're this, that, and the other.
Right.
I believe nature's taking its course here, and we've touched on this in a many different ways. We've touched on this with the technology standpoint. I mean, we got the younger generation. These children are born
with a screen in their hand.
With a screen in their hand, and they're going to be much, much more versed on all of this when they reach our age than we are right now. That is going to continue to snowball. These people, these younger, lazy, entitled. I'm quoting people here. I don't necessarily believe this.
Right.
I think they look different and act different because their world is going to be different.
Well, their world is different than ours.
You know, we are going to naturally start to take I think a closer look at these large systems. I mean, a lot of the younger generation feels the way we do about the two-party system, at least the ones that are even to a point where they're sort of paying attention to this. You know, and many other things.
Right.
A lot of our old ideas, a lot of our old, you know, I'm not trying to bring this back, but you know, right now we have a guy at the end of his life trying to make an impact. Happened to score the highest office of power in our
right.
It is really, really showing. I mean, my 12-year-old can give you his own opinion about our current president, our current government, not my opinion that I've dictated onto him.
Right.
You know, and it's going to be, you know, even a different view and a different than mine. They are paying attention because it is so loudly absurd right now.
Yeah.
They are paying attention. They're going to remember this for a long time. I'm not just talking about things right now, the climate, the continuing to pump a bunch of shit into our atmosphere that is going to kill the planet. They're not oblivious to this.
No.
Right?
Not at all.
I think nature's going to take its course. You know, I don't sit here and wish harm on the older generation, but nature's going to take its course there. Also, right? I mean, there's going to be a shift in ideals very soon. How long it takes for that to manifest into actual things, I'm not sure, but you know, right now, as I said, I really truly think the two-party system is all but fucking invincible because there's just so many powerful people and so much old money there. And how many? I mean, some people didn't even know Gary Johnson existed until 3 months before the actual election.
I know.
Right?
I know.
And that wasn't
that's
a coincidence.
No, not at all. I mean, the narrative has been shaped. Always.
You know, I even remember seeing the first mainstream media interview with Gary Johnson. It was literally 3 months before the election.
Yeah,
I knew he
no one
existed.
No one
I
was
paid
paying attention to him.
Right?
No one went. Well, because none of the news media, none of the mainstream media wanted to cover him because there. What sucks is that it has become so ingrained in the American psyche, this two-party duopoly thing that we have going on has become okay. Here's a perfect parallel, right? You and I have known nothing but Democrat and Republican our entire life. just like North Korea, has known nothing but the Kim family, who has been charged for that period of time. Now, we have access to the information that there is some other way of doing this, right? We have access to that information, and that is the difference. We have access to the information and the idea that maybe we can make a difference and maybe we can change this. We probably can't, but it gives us hope, right? The information and knowing that we might be able to do it. Whereas they don't have that information. They have the information that these people are gods and there is no challenging them, and that is where you live and what you do, and that is how things are. So you and I question, we say, well, this is fucked up. It's fucked up and it's stupid and it's not working. In North Korea, that wouldn't last very long for us. Here in America, thank God, we're much more free to be able to voice our dissent. But we are the few right now who understand that it's possible that these are not. All right, so go ask your average waitress what the FEC is, the Federal Election Commission. Go ask her about the debate commission. Well, she'll probably say, well, that's the government's way of putting up the debates. The debate commission is not part of the government. It's not a governmental entity. Parties are not governmental entities. I would say that most of the people you'd ask on the street believe that the Democratic Party and the Republican Party are governmental entities.
Right.
And that idea has become so ingrained that the idea of changing it gets impossible, because it's changing something that you're not really. The thing that they think they need to change is not really what exists. So if you don't understand the thing that you're trying to replace,
yeah, you're absolutely right.
You're never going to be able to replace it.
I mean, look, knowledge is power.
Right. I would say that the average American doesn't understand how the political process works. I remember taking civics class. Did you take civics class when you were younger?
No one takes civics class now.
Right, and that's what.
Also, not a coincidence.
Yeah, it's interesting to me. I would love to see when civics was taken out of the course curriculum for middle school and high school, because all of a sudden you have a bunch of people who are very ill-informed about how their government works.
Well, and I think some very powerful people saw the writing on the wall. Said, you know what? Let's stop that empowerment now. Let's take that course away, right?
Right, because back in the 60s, 50s, and 60s, it was very much ingrained to be a good citizen, right? Everybody talked about how to be a good citizen, and you do not hear that anymore anywhere. How to be a good citizen, right? Because what does that mean exactly, being a good citizen? That means being a part of a group and not being an individual. Being conscious of what other people around you are doing so that you can help and be a citizen, not just a resident, right?
And when look, America's still sort of in a baby stage of trying something new.
Yeah.
100 years ago, we said, you know what, this isn't working, so we're going to try something new. And, fast forward.
Yeah, we're a very young country. We're very young, and we're very new at this.
And we're realizing, we're going to realize a lot of things about it, but, power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely, right?
I look at it totally differently. You know that? Power doesn't corrupt. Power attracts the corruptible. You don't want to be in charge of anything. Do you know why you don't want to be in charge of anything? Because you don't crave power. right? There are people who crave power, and those are the people who get power and are corrupted by it.
So I think what we're looking at is a monumental task, um,
Oh, absolutely. I think that
of making some very, very real, substantial, large scale changes. Um, Certainly to our own country, but really as a global unit, as a this idea of humanity as a species and
right.
global thing. I mean, the part of that monumental task is getting rid of so many of these ancient uh, ingrained ideas, right? I mean,
It's important in order for humanity to move forward, really, and I really and honestly and truly believe this. In order for us to move forward as a species, we have to be able to control our biology.
right.
We have to, because we will not last. These cravings for power, these cravings for destruction and conflict and wanting to separate ourselves, say that is the other, that is bad.
And
Some of these things are built into us.
in a very early age, we also kind of become aware that we got at best 80 years do it all, everything that we want to do.
There are, well, I'm probably not talking in the microphone. I think that I think what's happening now, and I know that this happened with me, and so I'm really just trying to, I guess, speak from my own perspective. This idea that we're going to be able to make that choice, right, of whether I want to live an extended period of time, however extended that is. I think that idea has caught on. I think that idea has caught on with a lot of people. And I think that people are straining against their own mortality right now. The world is in a really weird fucking place right now. I mean, I think everybody fucking agrees that there are some banana shit going on, right? I don't attribute a lot to mysticism. You know, I'm a spiritual person, but I don't talk about it a lot. But I really feel like everyone is kind of. I think that there's this wave of realization coming over all of us that we're going to have to change the way that we do things. And I think it's been progressing that way since we've become kind of conscious that people are people, and as communication opens up more and more, and we're able to talk to each other more and more, and realizing that the Russians aren't my enemy. The Russian government is doing things that maybe its people don't necessarily agree with, but it's the government and the people who are in power who are the ones who are doing things that we don't agree with. Not necessarily, Yermani in Vladivostok, who, really just wants to get drunk on the beach. You know what I'm saying? I think we all need to realize that we're all kind of Yermani. We all just kind of want to get drunk on the beach. And the guys that don't want to do that and aren't satisfied with that, we have to make sure that they're not going to ruin it for the fucking rest of us, right? And I think we need to look at it that way. Guys like, I'm going to pick a really bad guy, okay? Guys like Stalin or Hitler or whatever had this idea that they needed to change the world in a way that suited them. And so people got on board with that because they wanted change, not necessarily because they wanted that change, but because they wanted change. And I think what we all need to be very conscious of right now is that we all want change, but we have to make sure that it's the right kind of change, not this willy-nilly, hey, we're going to go this way now because the steel is getting weak, right? And we all need to just kind of stop, slow down, and come to a consensus on some of these things.
And I think a lot of it. I mean, it's hard to teach dog new tricks. I think a lot of it's going to happen naturally. I don't think it's our children
No.
that hate Muslims because they're Muslims, or black people because they're black people, or anybody else because they're anything else. Right. It's not our children. I actually asked my kids candidly one day what they thought about all of this, and their simple response was, "We just don't understand why you guys talk about it so much, because it doesn't, not even on our radar." It's not maybe the words, but it was what they meant. It's not something we think and talk about. Right. This is going to change. It's never. It may never eradicate, but it's going to change.
It is, and I think that our kids, and that generation, once they realize the power that they have, are going to really start reckon the things that they see as absurd. And I'm looking forward to that, because a lot of the things that they think are absurd are things that I agree with. They're absurd too,
I'm with you.
But I think that there's some misguided people out there looking for change in the wrong places. And I think that my message to them would be to just stop and consider what the impact of your actions. Are you making the place that you're in better or worse, right? And I'm talking to all of them, right? It's a simple assessment. I'm talking to everybody, Antifa, whoever you want to, the Nazis, whoever is out there just fucking screaming with no intention of listening, right? Listening is always more constructive than talking. You're always going to learn more if you keep wits about you and don't let your emotions take control of what's happening to you. Because you have to realize that screaming monkey inside of you is just that. It's a screaming monkey. It does not understand what's going on. And if you let it take control, it's never going to end well. That's what this is. Like, this urge to tear things apart it's a very old thing that you need to be aware as a human that you have a choice, right? That's the big thing with humanity, right? That's what makes us different. The dog sees the dog, he's going to go hump the other dog because that's what he wants to do. There's no thought process there. It's instinct. We're humans. We should be able to kind of stick that hand in front of the train and say, all right, wait a minute, right? Let's take a second and make sure that the screaming monkey is not the thing that's in control right now, because the screaming monkey is never going to land you in a position that you want to be in.
Our potential as a species to come together, very, very powerful force, is always there, and we young and we're keep getting in our own way, and
it's a learning process. I mean, that's the thing, and I think that's what gives me hope right now, is that I talked to somebody a while ago, and I explained to them, and I said, look, this goes back and forth over and over and over. Okay, there are other people safeguarding you, and you realize, right? This current state of affairs is not going to last forever. Okay, sanity will return. We go crazy every once in a while, but we come back. We pick up the pieces, and we realize that we've been stupid. And they hadn't really looked at it from the perspective of, hey, look, this is insane, and everybody realizes, right?
Oh, sure.
The emotions were running high with this person, and they were really concerned and really worried. And this was right after, not long, really concerned and really worried about what was happening next. And so I said, look, we have mechanisms to make sure that shit doesn't get too far out of control. And trust me, if shit gets too far out of control, the mechanisms will kick in, and this problem will go away. It just will. I mean, it does, and it's close to happening as it stands right now, right? I mean, we look at
Absolutely.
this. People are talking about impeachment left and right, and the minute the midterm elections come, and if the Democrats were to take control of the Congress, impeachment is hot on the heels of that. So if you want to look at it that way, it probably this madness that we're going through right now is probably not going to last long. And so I think it's important for everybody to kind of keep a cool head, because I think emotions are going to get the better of us if we keep going down the road we're going, and we can't listen to what each other have to say. I think there's a large contingent of people out there that are communicating right now over the internet and over however they want to communicate, radio, television, whatever, that are just coming from a completely and utterly emotional place.
Absolutely.
And that is not going to be constructive for anything. Like, we need to be able to separate these instincts that are getting us into trouble from the rational course of action that we need to take.
Well, we tie these things into so many, so many things about us that we believe in that just can't be touched. You just cannot come at me about my religion. It's a non-starter for me, and I'm going to lose my apeshit mind if you do. Right? And we attach a lot of these things to politics and these parties, and certainly not just religion. These things that we can talk about a couple of these things. Don't touch this stuff, right?
Right.
I mean, this stuff don't even go there.
Right. Religion. What's the adage? Don't talk about religion and politics, because it's going to get messy, right? And it is. It's going to get messy
Absolutely.
every time.
But this is that monumental task, right? Because there needs to be a shift in all of these things, right? I mean, we not get, maybe, I don't, posing that all religion, it should go away, right? Maybe down the line we find less need for it. I don't know. I think
that's a slow process, and I think it's already started to take.
This was, everything is so entangled right now. It doesn't have to be, but it is. And until we can stop feeling so threatened, when one or the other party, right? I mean, we really need to find this middle ground. There's compromise there, I promise.
Yeah,
there's compromise there, and
I think that we also need to keep in mind that some of this is very much a dog and pony show. I mean,
sure.
We're all being manipulated to a certain extent. Like, we're not going down the conspiracy road, but what I'm saying is that there's always a narrative, whether it be through politics or religion or media or whatever. Someone is always trying to steer the information. And again, we're in a time, I saw this thing, man, and it blew my mind, and I'll tell you about it afterwards. I don't even want to talk about it on the air. But it's integral. I don't know. There's no solutions to any of these problems. There just isn't, because I don't know that you're not going to have an awakening all at once. You're going to have fits and starts, right? Pieces and parts are going to come to realization on their own. There are parts of the world right now that have no freaking concept of what's actually happening. But for any sort of change, massive change, come across with, to come through humanity, has to be a catalyst, right? So something is going to happen. Some kind of something has to happen in order to push us, to make us realize that we can no longer be these reactive entities that are is so entangled with our emotions and our old beliefs, right? And that catalyst has already kind of hit a couple people, right? Like, there's definitely a movement, not necessarily a movement, but definitely a group of people who are very interested in accelerating our progress as quickly as they possibly can. Now, whether those people are able to pull it off or not, we'll very much see. But
change is happening. I mean, not always for the best, to your point, but I mean, we've seen that, Brexit, right? No one predicted, right?
Yeah.
Look, let's even take Trump. No one predicted.
Yeah, well, that was an interesting
breakdown.
I mean, that was such an interesting thing. Yeah,
and
absolutely.
It's starting to change.
Right. Yeah, I think that we're headed in a decent direction. I think that things will resolve themselves.
Again, natural order is going to be what it is. I mean,
Yep.
we are going to progress. We're going to do it. No matter who stands in our way and possibly slows us down a bit, it's going to happen.
Yeah, I just hope
you and I want to be around for it.
That's really what it comes down to.
Right?
Yeah, you and I want to be around for this stuff so we can see it.
So, I mean, that's just it. I think it's happening. I can tell you this, man. I have got to eat something for beers.
Me too. So I think we're going to end it on that note. So what do you want to talk about next week?
Oh, jeez. I don't know. Let's surprise them.
All right. So maybe we'll talk about blockchain next week.
Okay.
Cryptocurrency.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll start there and see where it goes. I'll do some research because I don't know as much about it as I should.
No, I agree. Like and subscribe.
All right. Have a good night, everybody who's out there.
Yeah. All 11 of you.